Jagex is introducing some big changes to Old School RuneScape. That's right, they're bringing in stackable clues. Now, there's a whole lot in this news post, but we're going to be focusing on the stackable clues because it's a major change to all collection logging in the game, and I think that it's going to be pretty controversial because there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't think the high-level collection loggers are going to like. So let's take a look at what they said. Stackable clues. Stackable clue scrolls have been a highly requested feature for years, but they've also been one of the more divisive topics in the community. We know there are strong feelings on both sides. We want to take a moment to explain how we got here, why we want to make this change, and how we'll ensure it remains balanced for the future. How did we get here? Picture this. It's March 2024. The birds are singing, the goblins are goblining, and we decided to change clue scrolls so they despawn after an hour instead of 3 minutes. Why? Well, a small but dedicated group of players had figured out a crazy method of juggling clue scrolls. It was niche. It was weird, but instead of breaking that little loophole, we thought, why not just make this official? Surely this won't spiral out of control. Spoiler alert, it did. The entire clue hunting community took one look at this and started juggling clues like it was their full-time job. What was meant to be a small quality of life fix suddenly became the new sweaty meta. And before we knew it, our inboxes were full of complaints from players who hated clue juggling, but now felt like they had to do it to stay competitive. Lesson learned. Just because something is less annoying doesn't mean it's not still annoying. We knew we had to do something about it. However, simply undoing the change felt like pulling the rug out from under players who had already adapted to it. Thus, instead of relying on inventory tricks and despawn timers, we're proposing a way for players to legitimately stack a limited number of clue scrolls. Introducing the scroll box. Instead of juggling clue scrolls like a circus performer, with scroll boxes, you'll be able to stack your clue scrolls in a limited, controlled way. Here's how it works. If you've completed the quest, X marks the spot, you'll start receiving scroll boxes instead of regular clue scrolls. If you haven't completed X marks the spot, you'll still receive standard clue scrolls. You can hold up to a maximum of 5 scroll boxes, or 4 in one clue scroll. Geodes, bottles, and bird's nest, they'll now give scroll boxes instead of loose clue scrolls. It's worth noting that this proposed system is actually weaker than the current juggling method, but it's significantly less annoying. You won't be able to stack dozens of clues for long grinding sessions, but you'll have a legitimate way to hold on to multiple clues without resorting to tedious inventory tricks. Sounds great, right? Well, hold on, because you won't be able to just stack clues for free. Watson says you've got to earn them. Unlocking your stacking power. We know you're eager to hoard clues like a dragon sitting on a pile of treasure, but stacking clue scrolls is something you'll have to earn. Why? Because clue scrolls are special. That magical moment when you see your first clue drop, the rush of excitement, the dreams of untold riches, the immediate panic when it's a coordinate step, shouldn't be lost in a pile of stacked scrolls. We still want newer gamers to feel that rush of it's treasure hunting time. However, once you've proven yourself as a seasoned clue chaser, you'll be able to unlock the power to stack clues like a true treasure hunting pro. How to unlock your stacks. To increase your stacking limit, you'll need to complete the following challenges. Defeating the Mimic. This will increase your clue scroll cap across all tiers by 1. Complete a set number of clues per tier. This would unlock additional stacking for that specific tier. See below. And then here we have a chart with the clue tier. So for beginner clues, for the first cap increase, you're going to have to complete 50 clues. And then for the second cap increase, you'll have to do 100. For easy, it's 100 for the first one and 200 for the second one. For medium, it's going to be 100 mediums for the first cap increase and then 250 mediums for the second one. For hard, it's only going to be 50 for the first increase, and then 150 for the second increase. For elites, it's also going to be 50 for the first increase, and then 150 for the second. For master clues, we have a lower 25 completions needed for the first cap increase, and 75 completions for the second cap increase. Think of it as leveling up your clue hunting skills. The more you engage, the better your clue stacking ability gets. We've slightly reduced the numbers for rarer clues like masters and elites, since we know these can be quite the grind, but we're always open to feedback. Here's a quick example for you. Base level, no cap increases. You can hold up to 2 clues total, whether that's 2 scroll boxes or a clue scroll and 1 box. First cap increase increases your total clue capacity to 3 for that tier. And I just want to point out, when it says here that that's 2 scroll boxes, that means per tier. So you're not just going to have only 2 clues in general. It's kind of confusing wording though. Then your second cap increase is going to be increasing your total clue capacity to 4 for that tier. And then once you defeat the Mimic, you get an extra slot across all tiers, letting you hold up to 5 clues total, regardless of whether you've completed the other tier unlocks or not. This bonus is retroactive, so if you've already bested the Mimic before this update goes live, you'll get that +1 immediately. So basically, the other ones you have to do in order. You have to get the first cap increase before you get the second cap increase, but you can defeat the Mimic whenever you want, and it will still apply +1. So even if you haven't done enough for one of the other cap increases, you will still be able to get 3 total clue capacity by defeating the Mimic before you go through and do all this, if you want it. Now, of course, there are going to be some concerns with this, so let's take a look at what Jagex thinks they are and how they're going to address them. One key change we want to be upfront about is the reduction of the Clue Scroll despawn timer back to 3 minutes, which is huge. I cannot understate how that's going to change what everybody does. This will happen regardless of whether stackable clues pass the poll or not. We recognize this will be a controversial change, you could say that again, but after reviewing player behavior and feedback, we believe the 1 hour despawn timer led to unintended and frustrating play patterns that weren't healthy for the game. Our goal is to ensure Clue Scrolls remain an engaging and rewarding activity, rather than something that encourages excessive juggling or forces players into tedious inventory management. That's also why stackable clues are being proposed, to offer a practical alternative. If this update passes, you'll be able to store up to 5 clues per tier in your inventory, reducing the need for constant back and forth interruptions. The intent here is to smooth out the experience, not trivialize it. Whether you're finishing a Slayer task without needing to leave multiple times, or completing a raid without abandoning your group for an elite clue, the 5 clue limit helps strike a balance between convenience and challenge. This is just a first step in improving Clue Scrolls. We want to refine the system to enhance your gameplay without making it trivial. We'll continue to monitor how the system plays out and make changes if necessary, but to be absolutely clear, we will not be increasing the stack limit beyond 5. This is a firm cap. We have no plans to expand it further. Now that's incredibly controversial for a number of reasons. Number one, getting rid of the 1 hour despawn timer and putting it back to 3 minutes, whether or not stackable clues pass the poll, is a crazy change. It's gonna upset the meta for all those chunk locked Iron Men, for basically everybody who's going out and collecting collection logs. However, I do understand why they're doing it, because having done some clue juggling in the past to do 100 hard clues in a row, I can tell you that there was absolutely nothing more tedious that I've done in the game than that. And I'm actually very glad that they're getting rid of the need to clue juggle, because I think that clue juggling is literally just the worst. I think that a lot of people are going to be upset because it's a massive nerf to Clue Scrolls in general, because before you could stack up as many Clue Scrolls as you wanted on the ground. If you got 7 Clue Scrolls from your Slayer task, you could have them sitting on the ground, you just reset them every once in a while, and you can do them after the Slayer task. Now they're going to be capping us to 5 of each tier, and they're saying that they're not going to let that go up. This is a firm cap, and they have no plans to expand it further. I don't know why they're sticking at 5. I mean, I think they probably looked at the average amount of Clue Scrolls people get from Slayer tasks and said, nobody gets more than 5, but I do think that 5 is kind of low, considering how many people were stacking up before. I think they probably should have set it to like 10 instead of 5. I mean, it's just kind of nitpicky. I do think that there will be a lot less complaining, and people would be a lot less angry if the cap was slightly higher. If they wanted a middle ground way to do this, what they should do is, instead of having a 10 clue limit on everything, they should have a 10 or 15 clue limit on masters only. Solely because one of the things that's going to be really annoying about this update is when you're opening a bunch of caskets at once, you're going to have to deal with your master clues during the opening, which was something people were actually pretty happy to not have to do anymore, because it was like easy clue juggling. You just drop your master clue when you're opening a bunch of caskets, and as soon as you drop it on the ground, you're able to get more. So by introducing a limit to the amount of master clues you can have at one time, it's going to significantly slow down big clue openings back to what they were before people learned anything about clue juggling. So I do think that maybe just an unlimited amount of masters, because they're so tedious to get anyway, why put a limit on them? Or if you're going to put a limit on them, make it higher than the regular ones, solely because it will be so much more annoying to have to do them 5 at a time. That's just my 2 cents. In general though, I am happy that they're going to bring stackable clues into the game, because I just cannot stand clue juggling. It was perhaps the most annoying thing I did on my grind to 99 Slayer. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, because I'm actually curious to see what the consensus is. I know the consensus on Reddit isn't very good, and the consensus on Twitter is never very good, so I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And while you're doing that, if you could like and subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So that being said, let's move on to talk about skip tokens, which I think are something that they added in just to take some of the heat and controversy away from the actual changes to Clue Scrolls. Why do I think that? Well, let's just read this. Skip tokens. One of the biggest frustrations with Clue Scrolls is reaching a late step only to be hit with a task you can't complete or just really don't want to do. Some players resort to juggling clues to avoid these situations, which isn't exactly an engaging gameplay experience. To address this, we're introducing skip tokens, a new item designed to give players more control over their clue solving experience without removing the challenge entirely. Each clue tier will have its own skip token, obtained through Clue Scroll reward chests. These tokens will be tradable and stackable, making them a valuable commodity for players looking to streamline their clue runs. Here's how they work. Skip tokens allow you to skip a single clue step within a scroll. They cannot be used on the final step of a clue to preserve the integrity of the reward structure. A warning message will appear if skipping would complete the clue, helping to prevent you from accidentally wasting a skip token. By introducing skip tokens, we're offering an alternative to juggling, while also adding a new tradable reward to clues. Whether you're an Iron Man looking for a smoother clue experience, or a merchant eyeing new profit opportunities, these tokens should bring both convenience and value to Clue Scrolls. Now, I'm guessing you can probably tell why this is controversial, because they're tradable, which means that they're going to have value, and what people think is that super rich players are going to have an unfair advantage when it comes to opening Clue Scrolls, because they'll just be able to buy as many tokens as they want. However, I think that perspective perspective isn't exactly the best one. I do think that, you know, if people are constantly buying these skip tokens, the price will just keep going and going and going up until they just become too expensive, right? They're just going to be too expensive for anybody to really abuse that much. I think that the major problem and the major concern that I would have is the idea that this would incentivize bot farms, right? Clue Scroll bot farms. Because if skip tokens become something that's a somewhat common reward from Clue Scrolls, and they become a consistent way to make GP from Clue Scrolls, I guarantee you that somebody will set up a bot farm that will do Clue Scrolls. And if they do that, then we're going to see increases in the uniques coming into the game, which is going to devalue all the uniques. So if Jagex does do this, I think they need to watch very carefully for any effects from bot farms, which we all know they have a terrible track record of dealing with. The other controversial part of this is that they exist at all, right? Players have always used Clue Scrolls as a way to motivate them to progress their account. And by introducing something that will allow you to skip a step, that kind of takes away some of the reasons you would need to go out and train a skill or do something that you otherwise wouldn't do. It takes away the idea that you can use Clue Scrolls as a way to push yourself to progress. Now, of course, I don't think that's a huge issue either, solely because right now, the way things are, if you juggle clues, you can skip any step you don't like anyway. And plenty of people do that. I mean, on all the chunk locked accounts, they just juggle until they get all steps that they can do within their chunks. And skip tokens are basically just a slightly nerfed version of that. So I think people are very upset about this for very little reason. I also, despite what I said about the bot farms, I actually do think that if they're going to put these in, they need to be tradable, because I just cannot stand that Jagex has been doing this thing where with every new boss that they put in, every new item they put in, it's always just untradeable. You know, you got the vestiges from the Desert Treasure 2 bosses, untradeable until you change them into a ring. You've got the axe pieces that you get from the Desert Treasure 2 bosses that you can't sell until you combine them into the axe. You've got the parts of the halberd from Araxor that you can't sell until you put them all together into the halberd. And then you've got the fang from Araxor 2, which is also untradeable until you've turned it into an amulet of Rancor. And I think all of that's just really annoying. I think that that's just Iron Man baiting. I don't understand why they keep doing that. If you don't want to have to trade, you don't want to sell something, just play an Iron Man. But it seems like for whatever reason, Jagex has been kind of just making things inconvenient for mains. And I think that it's just a big blind spot for them, because a lot of them probably play Iron Man, and a lot of the more vocal community members are all Iron Men, so they don't have to deal with the frustration of getting a drop and then not being able to sell it when you could be making a ton of money, especially around release, from selling something that you got luckily without having to go around and get 3 other pieces of the same item before you can sell it. It just grinds my gears that they do it that way. I do not like it. I think the staff from the new giant bosses is the similar way, where you can't sell it until you combine them together to make the full staff. It just irritates me. It's a pet peeve of mine. But I do think that if they're going to put this kind of thing in, it should be tradable, but I think that they're going to have to watch it very closely. I am beyond annoyed at all the untradables that they keep throwing into the game without thinking, but they need to watch it very closely to make sure that it's not super easily abusable and that there's not bot farms farming it. That's just my 2 cents on it. However, what Jagex thinks this will do is right here. This update isn't about making Clue Scrolls easier. It's about addressing past mistakes and refining the experience. The longer despawn timer led to unintended frustrations, and we're rolling that back while also introducing stackable clues in a way that keeps the gameplay loop engaging and rewarding, with stackable scroll boxes replacing raw Clue Scrolls. I don't like the way they called them raw. Makes it sound like they're made out of meat, which I guess they do drop from monsters, so maybe they are. I don't like that. You'll have much more control over your clue inventory without relying on workarounds. Imagine you're deep into a Bandos or Next Trip, and that Clue Scroll drops on KC number 1. Instead of interrupting your run, it'll now stack neatly, ready for when you decide to take it on. Skip tokens provide an additional layer of flexibility, acting as a tradable resource that gives players more agency in clue solving. These aren't a free pass, but they do add an extra reward space, something valuable for both clue hunters and those looking for a trade. If you hit a step that doesn't fit your current plans, you'll have the option to skip it, keeping the momentum going forward, while preserving the challenge. At its core, this update is about removing unnecessary frustration, while keeping Clue Scrolls just as rewarding and exciting as ever. The challenge remains, but you'll have more control over how and when you take it on. So yeah, it's going to be a massive detriment to Clue Scrolls, and I think what they're trying to say is that they're offsetting the fact that Clue Scrolls are going to be slightly more annoying to do by giving us skip tokens and allowing us to make a little more money off of our Clue Scrolls, which I do think is kind of fair enough. This does not feel very old school though. Like the idea of a skip token, if they call it a skip token, the item in the game is called skip token, that's not very old school at all. I don't know what they could do to make it old school, like maybe just have like an imp in a jar or something that teleports away and does that clue step for you, but it definitely shouldn't just be a token. If they're going to do it, they need to do it in a way that actually feels old school, and just having a random coin in your inventory that you plug into your clue scroll and it skips a step doesn't make any sense. Like I said, maybe an imp in a bottle that you release and it goes out and does the step for you. That's my idea. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you excited for this change? Are you upset about this change? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and God bless you.